views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome, good people of the Bronx and beyond. My name is Henry Ovalles, and I'm your host for A Life in Art. On this show, we will bring you engaging and personal conversations with actors, dancers, singers, musicians, and other artists with whom you may not be familiar. People who have been working on their craft for at least a decade and are at a crossroads where passion meets necessity. We'll discuss creativity and inspiration with our guest artists, but also find out what it takes to balance the struggles of practical life while pursuing their passions. We also want to encourage you to connect with us on social media. Visit us on Facebook and YouTube at A Life in Art and Instagram and Twitter at A Life in Art TV. Our guest today is a talented Bronx-born poet and educator. She holds a BA in English Literature and Philosophy from Lehman College, as well as an MFA in Creative Writing from CCNY. She is the 2013 recipient of the Bronx Recognizes Its Own Award, or BRIO, in poetry, and is currently working on her first poetry manuscript. Today we learn about Natalie N. Caro's life in art. And here we are in the studio with Natalie N. Caro. Thank you so much for being here, Natalie, and for your support of the show thus far. So I feel like we've run in similar circles for a while, but we don't really know each other. According to Facebook, we have 37 mutual friends. So something's got to give there.
I know.
So let's just start at the beginning. Let me get to know you a little bit better and let our audience get to know you. Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
I was born in Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx.
Okay.
I lived here till I was about 13, and then my mom moved us up to Rockland County, and I went to high school there. But when it was time to come to college, I came back to the Bronx, and I came to Lehman.
Huh,
and
interesting.
I've been here pretty much, with the exception of 1 year.
At Lehman College?
Yeah.
Okay. And so early education, middle school was all in the Bronx
All
as
in the
well?
Bronx, yeah.
And then just high school, Rockland County. What was that experience like?
It was a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you have, as far as your classmates over at Rockland County, were they accepting of you, or were you sort of the outsider coming in? Or?
I've always been the outsider.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. A lot of reasons.
We don't have, the show's too short to get into all of it?
Too short.
Got it. All right, so and then what's your family history? Do you have any siblings?
I have 3 younger brothers, 2 from my mother and 1 from my dad, both remarriages.
Okay, so you're the oldest child.
I'm the oldest and the only girl.
Got it. So your brothers look up to you and you sort of have to, give them a spanking every once in a while, or how does that work?
They're different people.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they also run in different circles.
I see. So what's your relationship with your brothers? Are you guys tight or not so much?
We're not so close. I mean, we're nice to each other, but we're not exactly like super tight.
Right, just two different people?
Yeah.
Got it. And then you mentioned, so your parents are not together anymore?
No.
Got it. But are they both still around, both of your
Yes.
parents living?
Yeah.
And what's your relationship like with them?
I speak to them. I call them to let them know that I'm still alive.
All right, fair enough. And how often does that happen?
At least once or twice a week.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. That's pretty much what I do. I call
Yeah.
my parents once a week, so
Yeah.
we're good there. And so let's dive right into your artistic life. When did, the writing bug bite you?
So my aunt gave me a journal when I was about 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sort of write like made up stories in the journal. And then when I was 11, I stumbled across a book of poetry by Emily Dickinson. And I became sort of obsessed. And I wanted to like write like her. I don't know what I was thinking. But I figured out, it was mostly rhyme. So I was like, I can rhyme. I know big words. I can rhyme. So I started writing like poems like Emily Dickinson, or I tried to.
Right, and at what age was this?
11.
At 11?
Yeah.
Okay, and then at that point you were just, poetry is rhyming, I can do that.
Yeah, I thought, I was like, well, I can rhyme, yeah.
Got it. And then how did you continue to cultivate that? Was there a teacher in your life that helped out with that, or was it, sort of self-taught at that point?
I've always had like a space in my heart for poetry, and I kind of I cultivated it. I had teachers that sort of encouraged it in me.
Right.
And so like there'd be assignments that I didn't want to do, particularly in high school. I didn't like to do a lot of the writing assignments, so I would sort of ask if I could do like different assignments. And I had some teachers that were incredibly understanding and would let me sort of like swap out assignments.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
And then poetry, for some reason for you, poetry, there was just an easier way to connect with the...
Yeah, it was much easier. It was way easier for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then at that age, you know, talking about when you were 11 and being inspired by the Emily Dickinson poetry book, what kind of poetry were you writing then? Do you remember? Do you still have it around?
Yeah, it was like sad stuff.
Sad at 11? What was going on?
I don't know. I've always had a tortured soul.
I see. All right, so let's keep moving on
Yeah.
then from 11 and starting to write poetry there. What happens next? How do you continue to,
I've been writing. Okay, so I'm writing. I'm in high school. I have a terrible time in high school because I'm kind of an outsider. So I definitely like throw myself harder into the writing. I reach out. So I connect with like 2 of my teachers.
in high school?
In high school. And so much so that I actually gave them like my first manuscript back then
Really?
of poetry. I think one of my teachers' name was Miss Rosenberg. She was like my 9th grade English teacher. And then Mr. Burrows, which was my 9th grade earth science teacher. And it was the first time that I had ever shown anyone, like, with the exception actually. So at this time, so I've always had like this best friend, Brian.
Okay.
And like we've been best friends since we were like 8. And,
Oh, that's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, and so he used to like hear my poetry like over. I mean, he was like the only boy I spoke to on the phone, too.
Got
You
it.
know, and so like he was like sort of the first ear, but like the first set of eyes were like my 9th grade teachers. And fast forward to like 11th grade, I have Mr. McCormick, who sort of gives us this assignment, and this assignment really sort of like pushes me even harder. It's to write an entire story in couplets.
Oh, okay.
And it's sort of like in the style of like the epic poetry. So that was part of the lesson that we were learning. We were like reading, I believe it was Beowulf.
Okay.
And sort of like, and that really like sort of like, cause you know, like when you're young, you like write poems and you're just like, oh, you know, they're about love, of course, and about like heartbreak and whatnot. But
Yes.
to tell an entire story, like an entire narrative,
Right, that was something sort of new to you.
that
and
was
something
new
that
to
opened
me.
you up.
Yeah, to start from like a story from beginning to end.
Right.
Yeah, so
Huh, fascinating.
yeah, so then
And that, what age was that you're saying?
I
That's
want to say like 16 going on
okay.
17.
So like a 5-year jump there when you know, first discovered poetry, let's say, and
Yeah.
figured that you had a knack for it until now starting to get into, oh, you could do storytelling through
Yeah.
poetry.
Yeah.
And I guess storytelling is something that you're into as well.
I actually love like narrative poetry. I think it's pretty dope.
Got it. Is that your forte, do you feel?
I
or-
don't know. I like to experiment a lot with poetry, actually. So I'm always trying new sort of styles. I sort of, I like to like just try different things.
Right, right. And have you tried other like short story writing, or are you interested in writing novels, or is poetry really your niche and your thing?
So I've had to experiment because at CCNY they make you take like 2 workshops outside of your like field.
Right.
So if you're a poet, you have to take like a nonfiction workshop and or a fiction workshop.
Got it.
If you're a fiction writer, then you have to take a
Right, so they
poetry
make
workshop.
take you out of your comfort zone so you
Yeah.
could expand a little
They
bit.
challenge you.
Okay.
And so I've actually tried my hand at short story writing. That was really hard.
Awesome. All right, so
Yeah.
let's take that moment to take a break then,
Yeah.
and then we'll dig deeper in our next segment. So we'll take a quick break, but we'll be back with more about Natalie and Caro when we return.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
At the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Don't let E. coli mosh with your food. An estimated 3,000 Americans die from a foodborne illness each year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So always separate raw meat from vegetables. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
Teachers today are finding new ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable.
Welcome back to A Life in Art. We are here with writer Natalie N. Caro. So Natalie, when we left off in the first segment, you had talked about going into CCNY and sort of exploring different types of writing there and being pushed out of your comfort zone. How important was it for you to go and get your master's degree? Was it a decision that you made right away after getting your BA that you wanted to stay in school, or is it something that you struggled with?
It's actually something that I struggled with.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what happened. So I took a year off after undergraduate because I found myself in a space where what I thought I wanted was not it. I had sort of worked myself up to the idea of becoming like a lawyer, and I was super excited, and but I ended up rescheduling the LSAT like 9 times. And after a while, my best friend was like, maybe this isn't what you wanted to do. So I thought that, okay, maybe I just want to be an English major. So I applied to an MA program at SUNY New Paltz. I got in. It was great. I was super excited. About a year into the program, I realized that I still wasn't happy. The kind of writing that I was doing wasn't something that I felt like I connected with at the time. So I packed up my stuff and I came back to the Bronx, and I took another year to sort of think about what it was that I wanted to do. During this time, I actually sort of threw myself into poetry even more. I guess it's just the sadness and the frustration and the not knowing sort of just made me sort of want to write more, sort of express myself and sort of let it go. And I had submitted one of the poems to the literary magazine here at Lehman, Obscura.
Oh yes.
And I got published here, and I thought, hell, like, why am I not doing that? Like, why don't I take that seriously? And so I decided to apply to MFA programs.
That's awesome, and you never know, that little push, like just being published in Obscura, which is, it's actually a great magazine for, those of you, if you're able to get it. It's actually, really awesome. But yeah, just that little push to just how, in a way, changed your life and changed your view on, your self-image and what you could do. But then you did your BA from Lehman is in English and philosophy. So there must have been something about you that you talked about possibly wanting to become a lawyer, but to major in English and philosophy, there must have been part of you that says, I don't care about money in the future, or am I off base there?
No, I don't. I thought, like, okay, so everyone I sort of met had always told me that you never end up working in the thing you get your degree in.
Okay.
So I sort of like bought that.
Sure.
I bought in, and I was also teaching here at the time as well. So I was like,
already you were teaching?
Yeah, I started teaching right after undergraduate. So I was already teaching, and I'm like, well, I could always like make money teaching and like find other ventures. I don't know. I guess I wasn't thinking about money.
Right.
I always joked like with my mom that I would end up like burning my manuscripts for like, heat. So that's been a joke. It's probably going to be a reality.
See, no, that's one of the things that we discuss on this show, just, the artist, path and the journey and that whole notion of the starving artist, which I think so far in the interviews that we've had, we sort of dispel that notion a little bit, and also talk about just how important it is to actually do something that you're passionate about. Because probably, hopefully that won't be the case, but if you are burning manuscripts to stay warm, but you're fulfilled, that's probably more important than you becoming, a successful lawyer on Wall Street. And that's debatable, you think? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know. It depends. I think you can make money off your craft. I think it's just hard. It's really hard to make money off your craft.
Yeah. It's a whole other head, a way that you got to work on it. So you talked about teaching here at Lehman. So you were teaching as an adjunct lecturer right after undergrad?
Yeah.
So I have a similar experience also. I work as the assistant director for Lehman Stages, helping to manage the theater spaces at Lehman College. But I also taught as an adjunct lecturer in the theater program for about 2 years. And that experience for me was theater, something that I'm very passionate about and that I love. And I felt that I got into the classroom and I would bare my soul to these students. And a lot of times I would get good response, but then you have, sometimes you get a group that just doesn't respond, and you
not
feel—
everyone wants your soul.
Right, exactly. I mean, and you feel like offended, like, oh, this is something that I love. How could you not be responding to it? Do you have a similar experience?
I had one semester where that happened to me. I usually teach composition and freshman seminar.
Right.
One semester I taught English literature, and it was a group of students who were not actually that's not true. There was just a couple kids who weren't as passionate about literature as I was.
Right.
And it was a little demoralizing and heartbreaking. I try not to take it personal, But it definitely was like, oh man. But you know, I think these sorts of experiences make you look back at your own sort of craft and your own pedagogy and sort of think about like, all right, there's something in here that's not relevant to them.
Right.
There's something in here that I may be connecting with that they're not connecting with. How can I make this material more relatable? And I think it actually helped me, that experience helped me become like a fresher teacher. Like I started looking at, I'm like, okay, so what are some of the things you guys are reading and what are you looking at? And it made me sort of more engaged in like youth culture.
Right.
And sort of I was able to pull and like cull from youth culture and see what I could apply from what they were already watching, what they were already listening to, what they were already reading or skimming.
Right.
And like incorporate it into my own lessons.
Right, and then just find a way to connect with them that way.
You got to meet them. I realize that it's not about me. Like in the classroom, it is not about me.
That's really important. That's really important. And the students also don't realize, like, you know, when you're giving them an assignment, sometimes they come in with the mentality of like, oh, they're just giving me work. But, you know, as a professor, as an instructor, that's work for you as well. Like, you know, when I assign a play for you to read, I'm reading it again, even though I've read it before, and I'm looking through things and I'm finding new things every time. So I'm coming at it hoping that you're going to give me something fresh and we could have a real discussion. And students don't always see that, but I think it's, you know, it's great that, I think what a good teacher does is what you've talked about doing, looking at it, you know, as to what can I do to get them to become engaged and motivated.
I think a lot of students don't see it that way. I think it's because of the way that education has changed. Like,
right.
The way, what we learn, why we learn, like people don't come to school to learn, they come to school for degrees.
Right.
So.
And in your case, how early on did your respect for literature and come into your life, or was that?
I've always loved English. It was the one thing that I've always loved reading. Like I was the kid that would take like a box of books in the summer and just stay all summer in my room and just read. But I know that that's like the exception, not the rule.
Right.
And so I don't know. I just.
Right, but it came from an early age.
It came from an early age. It's always like I've always
that passion was there.
Actually, you know, but so the person who made me think about it though, like really think about it, I had this philosophy professor who's like, "Why are you here?" Like freshman year of college, he's like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Holy crap, why am I here?" He's like, he's like, "Why are you here?" And he kept asking us like until like.
There's some philosophy for you.
Yeah, for sure.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this segment, Natalie, and then when we come back, I want to dig into your Brio Award and poetry and performing poetry and the differences between writing and performing.
Awesome.
So we'll continue to wax poetic when we return after this break. We'll be right back.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
So at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Today, 1 out of every 4 American kids is Hispanic. Many of the future doctors who will care for us, the scientists and entrepreneurs of our country, can be your kids. And the Hispanic Scholarship Fund helps you prepare, plan, and pay for your kids' college education.
And we're back on A Life in Art with Natalie Nicole Caro. So, Natalie, when we left off, I said that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the differences between writing poetry and performing poetry, because you perform as well. So, besides being a poet, you're a spoken word artist, I guess is what I would say also?
I'm learning.
Learning?
Yeah,
okay.
I've been a page poet for a really long time. I'm sort of learning to like get out of my own head and out of my shell and realizing that there's a performative aspect to poetry as well. So, you know, that sometimes you have to make the poem jump out of the page for someone to really like engage them.
Sure.
So I've been practicing and I've been going to a lot of like poetry events to sort of like learn from people who have been doing it for a much longer time than I have.
Right, so how recently have you started jumping on stage to perform?
I've been doing a couple open mics every once in a while.
Sure. And how's the experience been for you?
In the beginning, it was traumatic.
Okay.
Okay, so at CCNY, there's a really great thing that they do. There's the creative writing program has like the reading series, and it's a way of encouraging their students to get off the page and onto the stage. And so I did a couple of those, and I used to sort of co-curate, and that helped. But I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's in like a community of your peers, so it still is like safe.
Still, yeah, you're still in a safety net.
Yeah, and so like now I've sort of been out, sort of venturing out. And it's a little scary, but I've actually had the fortune of encountering really wonderful and like welcoming people. There's a space I went to called El Fogón, and I met this group called Machete Movement, and they host something called Smoking Word and Drum. And literally this has been like one of the most welcoming spaces I've ever been in. Like, it's just super, 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 super nice, and like everyone's like incredibly encouraging.
That's amazing, yeah. What is that circuit like? Are you familiar with it? Because I know, for example, the New York Poets Cafe, that I've been to, you know, poetry slams and spoken word events that I happen to love. I just feel like those spaces have like words edged into the walls of the history that's been there. But how does that work if you do want to be a spoken word artist? Do you sort of just go to open mics to all of these different places, or? I
think you just go to open mics, and sometimes people ask you to read at their readings. Like, so I recently was asked to do an event for Arieto. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. And it's because he's a host, and he picks features, and so I assume that, I don't know if that's
at
always
different
the
locations.
Case. Yeah, people just go to to open mics, and they check out the talent, and they sort of scoop you up.
I see.
I think that's how it is.
Right, or it could be an event that you're, for example, having a reading, and then you invite a friend, or open it up also for anyone. That
There's
wants
also
to.
competition, so so that that'll actually even open up more spaces. It seems. Again, I'm like a baby. I'm a newbie at this spoken word scene. So yeah.
But you're finding that for your own poetry, now that you're saying it aloud in front of an audience, are you finding new things in it, and does that change the way that you approach your writing now?
Absolutely. I didn't realize how much sound is important to like language and communication, and how sound actually influences a listener.
Sure.
Like, I think at the most like basic level, we're all like musical creatures, and so our ears linger on things that are musical. And so now I've sort of, listening to myself has forced me to sort of be more conscientious of my word choice and my sound choice.
Right, as you write.
As I write.
Okay.
And as I edit. I don't think sometimes you can't pay that much attention as you write, because you won't write anything. You'll just be like paralyzed by your analysis.
Right.
But as you edit, it's something to think about.
Is writer's block something that you struggle with, or not so much?
When I'm really, really happy, I have writer's block.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So you got to try to sadden yourself.
I have to like really. No, I mean like with all the political stuff these days that's going on, it's not that hard to be sad.
Understood. Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the Bronx Recognizes Its Own. What is that? Let our audience know. And
so it is a grant/fellowship that you can apply for, and it's through the Bronx Council of the Arts. And it's super dope, and they basically pay you for being talented, and you have to do a one-time community service act for them as well. It's nice because it's a way of connecting you to an audience,
right?
Which is super awesome. Because most people don't you have the sort of voice, but getting the audiences right, that's the hard part. The first year that I applied for it, I didn't get it.
Right.
I cried a lot. But I went back and I busted out some new poems.
My heart breaks for you. You're so hard on yourself. Why are you so hard on yourself?
I don't know. I think a lot of writers, or a lot of artists in general, are their own worst critics.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with my art, sure.
Yeah, you make the line for yourself, right?
Right, right. Yeah, so Bronx Council on the Arts has been an incredible organization that has been, they've certainly, assisted our work at Lehman Stages and things like this. I have a couple of other friends that have also, been BRIO recipients, and it's just,
A lot of people don't know about them. I really wish more people knew about them, because even I don't even know how I found out about them. I think I was just I use poets and writers a lot as a resource.
Sure.
And I was just searching through opportunities for writers, and I was like, oh, what's this? I didn't even know that. First of all, I didn't even know that every borough had a council of the arts that was more than happy to give artists money.
Right.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So that was super awesome to find out.
Yeah, it's so interesting. As we touched on it a little bit earlier, that as an artist, especially this day and age, you really have to have two heads. It's creating your work and all of that, but then there's the whole other aspect of getting it funded and, marketing and being able to, get it to the people.
An artist and a business person.
Right.
You have to create the work and then market it.
Yes, and that's so hard.
It is. It is.
I'm not very good at that, I'll admit.
No.
Yes.
The struggle is so real.
Yes, the struggle is real. And speaking of the struggles, something that we like to talk about here on the show is, what is your living situation like? How do you pay rent? How do you pay your bills? Is it through your art? What are the sort of survival jobs that you've had to go through? And if you want to, talk to us a little bit about that in your life, what that's like.
I've been working since I was 14, so I've always like just had jobs. Right now, I've been sort of living off of a mix of savings and my family sort of helping out. But before, I actually just had work, and I would have savings, and when I didn't have, so adjunct work is sort of
right.
flighty to say the least.
Yeah, you never know when you're good. It's not like you're a full professor that you have something guaranteed. It's basically semester by semester that you get the letter saying, all right, you're back, or sorry, you're not back this year. Yeah,
so it it forces you to be a little bit more responsible with money.
Right.
And so I've always just had a budget, with the exception of the last 2 years. I've always kept a budget, know how much I'm gonna spend for that month, and then I take jobs that are going to create that sort of sum for me, and then I just budget my money.
Right? So you're pretty good at stretching out and, and being practical in that sense. So we talked about teaching a lot in education, and a lot of times a phrase that comes up with, artists that become teachers is that phrase that,
God.
Exactly.
I know what you're going to say.
What am I,
those who can't do
Those
teach?
Who can't do teach. So as an educator and as an artist, what does that, how is there truth to that? Are you offended by that? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't take it personal. They're probably talking about somebody. It's not me.
That's a great way of looking
It's
at it.
not me.
Yeah.
I think honestly, some of the most passionate educators that you'll have in classrooms are people who are artists, people who are living in the art, and people who have a strong sense of the meaning of the work that they're doing. I think it's that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
And it doesn't apply to most of the teaching artists that I know. So
I agree completely. I'm right there with you. And also, I mean, those folks aren't in that classroom seeing, the light, us opening the eyes of these, these new artists that are going to come through, because someone has to do it. And if it's, somebody that's a teacher that is not living it, I just don't know how you can be as passionate about it and care about it as much if you're not, living it day to day. So I think it's, it's a benefit that artists do put themselves in those situations where they're, giving their hand to the next person to come by. Yes. So we're about to wrap up now, Natalie. I think it went by, pretty quickly. Is there anything that you feel that I missed? Anything that you have coming up that you want to talk to us about, or?
You can follow me on Twitter at Scattered Stanza, or on Instagram at Scattered_Stanza for my scattered thoughts and musings.
There goes the marketing aspect. Scattered Stanza, I love that. So that's it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Oh, sure.
Thank you.
It seems we've run out of time. Thanks to Natalie for sharing her life in art with us. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Remember to find us on social media and catch any of the episodes you may have missed. And we'll be back with more stories from emerging artists when we return with The Life in Art.